Morning, guys. I'm gonna hop on here this morning. I got this couple minutes before work. This kind of seems to be the time I've been throwing these videos out, or at least creating them, anyways. I had a great question this morning through Facebook. Somebody asking in regards to exosomes and the narrative on how viruses are contagious, how they're airborne. Let me start by saying viruses aren't airborne. That's biologically, I ain't gonna say impossible, but it's implausible. It's something like very rare. I mean, for somebody to sneeze or cough and for that virus inside of that tiny droplet to stay incubated, because there's many factors. I mean, lack of food source, exposure to the oxygen, temperatures, all these factors kills the life, kills the environmental conditions for that virus to sustain life within that fluid. The way they're teaching that it is contagious, it's not the actual virus you're catching. It is the particle within the exosome. It's kind of like the way I explained it to my buddy on Messenger this morning. It's kind of like a seed. I could go and rip up a plant out of the ground. That plant's going to die. But within that plant are seeds. And if you take those seeds and you put them back into fertile soil, it will grow a new plant. It'll be a strain of that plant. It's the same ideology with viruses. While the majority aren't catching a virus, they're catching the solvent, they're catching the toxin that infects the exosome that creates the virus. But the considering factor is the bacterial environment internal-wise. So while, say, you have a family, right? You got, we'll just say 2 people. We'll do it on the 50-50 scale. Okay, 2 people live in a house. One person eats an all-natural diet. One person deals with stress efficiently. They don't let things bother them. One person works, say, in a nature reserve, where they're out in clean air in the woods all day, while the other eats a highly acidic diet. They work in a factory, no sunlight, breathing in toxins, breathing in carbon dioxide, lack of oxygen, lack of fresh oxygen, and they deal with stress all day. Well, what happens is individuals, the corona around the individual's bodies, and corona is an energy field that cannot be seen to the naked eye. Realize that, the definition. Okay, each individual that living within that house is going to have their own resonance about themselves due to their consumptions, physically, mentally, environmentally. And that has an influence on immunity response in the bacterial environment, how the body efficiently deals with toxins, solvents, how the body flushes these toxins and solvents out of the body, how the body rebuilds cells. Okay, so you have these 2 different people within the same house, but they got complete different resonance due to their consumptions. Okay, then someone comes in the house that has a virus. They sneeze and cough. Okay, say they sneeze on some kind of a food, right? Within an hour, that virus ceases to be alive, but both people eat a chip. We'll just use chip for an example. Eat a chip that has this dead virus on it. Okay, the one with the all-natural, less stress, they eat it. The tiny particles within that dead exosome cell, right, contracts and gets exposed to the new host exosome cell. Okay, their body is going to take that infected exosome cell and feed on the bacteria around it. And if they have the right bacteria called prebiotics and probiotics, that exosome cell is going to mutate into an antibody. And while this other person in this house, the one that's always stressed, eats a highly acidic diet, all the other little environmental conditions I was talking about, same scenario. They eat the chip, that toxin, that solvent, gets into their exosome. Their exosome cell absorbs that toxin. Okay, that seed. Well, the bacteria they have, this exosome cell has to feed on is Candida albicans. Okay, this is going to create a virus. Okay, this is the difference in how people have. One person will have immunity, one person won't. One person will have symptoms, one person won't. It's because of the body's bacterial environment, and it has everything to do with the conditioning of the individual, the resonance of the energy around the body, because certain things will resonate and create antibodies, which ultimately builds our immune system against those foreign toxin particles, those solvents, for future exposure. But that's the thing. Once the person that creates the antibody, once that antibody is created within that exosome cell, it's been mutated and it's got a whole new strand, not metaphorically speaking, but in simile, okay? The blueprint of that antibody that person can then cough or sneeze, and that antibody, that exosome cell that's been mutated to an antibody, can do the same thing the way they're saying a virus spreads. This is how we create herd immunity. Because if somebody gets exposed to that dead antibody, the blueprint is already within it. That seed is already within it. So if that seed gets exposed and absorbed by a new host exosome cell, they'll have the blueprint to create antibodies. This is how herd immunity is created. But like I was explaining about the resonance of individuals, okay, this is how somebody, say, from Eastern India can have antibodies within them, but they come over to the States and their diet's different, their lifestyle's different, the way they think is different. Therefore, they have a different resonance about their bodies than us in the Western society. This is how plagues can infect a whole group of people, because the resonance of these populace isn't used to this particular virus that lives and hosts in a certain resonance. Therefore, it's foreign. They don't vibrate at the same frequencies. Therefore, they don't go together. They'll be conflicting, which can lead to, especially in a malnutritioned or an overacidic or a highly toxic person, it can be deadly. It can be dire. But that's the thing, is we need to be conditioning our children not only physically, not only dietarily, not only mentally, but all together. It's truly the balance between mind and body. And this is the stuff that they're not learning in school. Most adults don't even understand or comprehend, so they can't teach it to their kids at home. And this is the difference between ignorance and stupid. Ignorance is lacking knowledge. Stupid is to understand the knowledge and ignore it. This is how ignorance turns to stupidity. We got to start feeding our kids right. We got to start influencing their focus. Get them out from in front of that TV. That TV is one of the most toxic, fear-driven, which inhibits the immunity responses due to the fear factors. I mean, you turn on the television, 9 out of 10 channels, within a couple minute period, you're going to hear something down the lines of drama, sex, drugs, violence, war, death. It's constantly influencing toxicity in a mental way, because when we think toxic thoughts, it creates biochemicals that hinders our immunity response, that lowers our resonance of our frequencies. This is kind of how I explain how Eastern Indians, because I had one of my tenants ask me how over in India that they can swim in the Ganga River, which is super germ, bacterial, viral. It's got all these different factors. I mean, they're basically swimming in septic. They're swimming in feces. Why aren't they getting sick? Why aren't the majority of them died off? And it's the same as I was explaining just a few minutes ago. Within Hindu, they practice meditation. They practice separation from this physical world. They practice and eat all raw diets. Majority of them don't eat meats. Therefore, they have a resonance about their body. They have a bacterial environment about their body that efficiently deals with infectious organisms. They've built their immunity up over exposure. And this is what makes no sense about our Western society, how we are so sick. We're so cancer-riddled. Diseases, disorders. We're not in a natural resonance with the planet. Everything we eat is dead, is refined or processed, or has additives added or preserved. I mean, we're exposed to stress factors which induce biochemicals that inhibits our immunity responses. It's Just take into consideration of some of the things that I mentioned here. Study prebiotics and probiotics, how they're created. Learn meditation. Learn to separate from this external world and go inside. Reboot your computer. Because you get so many apps running, so many programs running, you become more prone to viruses. Your computer slows. Simply reboot your computer. But understand that knowledge is key, health is your foundation, belief is your success, and wisdom is your power. I hope all create blessed days for themselves. I love you guys. One love.